Hey, how are you? Okay, I'm gonna do a really quick rundown of Madam Web. So, spoiler alert, I'm gonna say a few things that are gonna be talking about, like, literally the characters, the acting style, um, themes behind it that I saw that I really enjoyed. I'm not gonna spoil the ending for you. So if that makes a difference, I will not tell you, who wins, who loses, who dies, who, lives. But also no tea today. It's just coffee, but it's decaf because I'm trying to wean myself off. Anyways, great to see you. Great for you to see me, I guess. And I just wanted to say that I saw right now that on Rotten Tomatoes or something like that, they ranked it 3.8 on a scale of 1 to 10. And you guessed it, 10 would probably be the best and 1 would be the worst. But what I also want to say is I don't always agree with Rotten Tomatoes. Sometimes I really like their reviews, and I think that their rating is pretty good. But I also just don't think that you should rely on things like that. You should see movies if you want to see them, and then judge for yourself. I also want to say that one of my favorite content creators, he did I think he did a slight review on Madam Web, if I'm not mistaken, and I actually purposely haven't watched it because I didn't want it to impact anything that I said. So I went and I saw it, even before I saw it, he was like, oh, I didn't really like it. It broke my heart because I was just like, come on, man, like, there's not a lot of movies with like female lead characters and then those of color that talk about the topics that they talk about. It's just really, really important. And if there are some, there's just not enough, and so I haven't listened to his review on it, so I really don't know why he didn't like it, but I didn't want it to impact or have any bearing on my review. So I saw the movie anyways, and I enjoyed it. I picked up a lot. I went to the Draft House, obviously, because where are you gonna watch a film besides the Alamo Draft House? And then after that, I just started taking notes, actually, while I was in the theater, because all these things started popping out at me, and so I may tag Austin Archer in this, but I may not, because I'm kind of shy. So if you can't tell from my lives and me being really loud, that's me being shy. But okay, I'm gonna go straight into it. I'm gonna touch on a few of the topics just that I noticed at first, and then I may go into a little bit of details, but I'm gonna try and keep this as short as possible for this video. Really what I loved about this video is it breaks the glass ceiling in so many ways. And as a Latina, I know white passing Latina, but as a Latina, woman of color, who's a Mexican American here in Texas, this movie meant a lot because it had a lot of different stereotypes that it broke. So, and it's just like a feminist movie. How do you not like it? So it goes into, I guess one of the first things that I really have to talk about is, oh, damn it, I was going to look up what it was called, that new law that they're passing. I think it's in, where is it? Is it in Arizona? They're always passing stupid bullshit like that over there. But it talks about immigration and deportation in the movie. And so I thought that was just, obviously it's really close to all of our hearts, especially if you're from a border town like I am. And how that impacts families when you break them up, and what that does to our DACA recipients, our dreamers, which is really funny because there's all of these metaphors and allusions to time traveling, multiverses, dreaming, and then we have a literal dreamer in the movie. So a dreamer is someone who relies on the DACA Act in order to keep their citizenship, their residency. and to be able to live here in the United States, right? So that was like mind-blowing how they made that like parallel, right? And just like a literal dreamer as Madam Web, but then like her surrogate daughter, right? By the end of the movie is and then she's played by Isabella Merced is the actress, and in the movie she's Anya Corazon, right? So she has a lot of heart. Her last name is Corazon, so that means heart, right? And so you have all of these like little innuendos and little parallels and little allusions everywhere, and it's just like one after another after another after another. And the little I heard from Austin Archer is that he didn't like it because he feels like it was written really quickly and they just like slapped it together and then they just didn't do a good job. And I'm here to say that, just forget about what that guy said and listen to other stuff he says. I really like his other content. So not knocking him, but I just didn't agree with that review. I feel like maybe he didn't look into it as much, or maybe it didn't mean he's like a straight white guy, okay? But he's a great ally. I mean, like a literal ally to the LGBTQIA community. And so, like I said, I like the guy. I just think that he missed the mark here. I think it didn't mean as much to him as it would mean to like someone like me, a queer Latinx from a border town in Texas, that Latina, like, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't hit him the way it hit me, and so he probably didn't notice any of these things, or he didn't care. Or not that he doesn't care, like I'm trying to say. I like the guy. I don't know him, but, he has good points, and I know that he's, as far as on the political end of the spectrum, I think I'm a little bit more left than he is. I'm definitely more liberal than he is, but he's pretty damn liberal. So I know that he's like for allyship in a lot of ways. Immigration, I'm not sure. I don't know if I've heard him talk about that before. But he's definitely an ally, but I just feel like maybe to me some of these things meant more. Okay, enough trying to not insult that guy. Who cares? But yeah, so Anya Corazon is the stage name, the nom de plume, and Isabella Merced is that actress, and she has this like little crop top, which she's always putting her hands over, so I don't know if that was like a director's choice to do that to show that she has like limited clothing, and that she probably got that as a hand-me-down, but she's uncomfortable in her own skin, even though she's intelligent and is always really solving the problems for the three girls that are being pursued by a man who is also having dream premonitions that these girls are going to kill him. What he doesn't know is that it's self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So he is literally causing these girls to become a team. And I'll talk more about that later. And so I thought that was so important about how Anya Corazon's father is deported. And so she is, in essence, she's an orphan in the United States. And that's what happens to a lot of DACA recipients and people that come over here. They're hardworking, they're intelligent, they have great grades, they are well-behaved, or whatever that means, right? And they have to grow up teaching themselves and relying on themselves because there's so much instability that the government causes for us hard-working Mexicans. And I'm Mexican-American and I am a citizen, and so I've never had to go through that. But just knowing the burden that causes, right? And so it's really interesting. The whole movie, I was thinking about, like, why does she keep covering her stomach if, like, that's the shirt she chose to wear? And it says, like, STEM women or something like that. Really badass. But, like, just thinking about how she can't pay her rent. Her father got deported. She's living in secrecy. And she doesn't know what to do. So, obviously, like, her clothing supply is limited. You know what I mean? And she is going through all of these, like, issues, right? And so you just see that. and how she has to just rely on herself. And a lot of these girls do have to, all the girls, all the women in this film it's an all female led film with heavy hitters who are just have their own personalities and leading this movie. It's just really, really powerful. And so the second thing I wanted to say, besides how Latinas are intelligent and hardworking, is that not only that, but we have the lead character Cassandra Webb, who's played by Dakota Johnson from the 50 Shades of, you know what I mean. And I never saw it and I never read it, but I was just like, just read Game of Thrones. They, you know what I mean? Onion rings. Anyways, so like sex a lot of sex in Game of Thrones. And so I don't know, I've never read 50 Shades of Grey, but whatever. So Dakota Johnson is this hardworking paramedic who's like has all this bravado and, you know, thinks she can take on the world, and she's like the lead even in her partnership with her work partner, who's played by Adam Scott, who's called Ben Parker in the movie. And I love how this version of Spider-Woman, Madam Web, plays an homage to Spider-Man in a lot of ways. And then it leaves you on this cliffhanger because you're thinking, oh, Ben Parker, like, okay, so one of the Parkers is going to die, right? Because that's the superhero canon. So we're thinking, oh my God, her partner, who we think may be her love interest, is going to die. And then she's going to have this spark of something that happens to her. Like a lot of the Spider-Mans, right? And this isn't so. So it also breaks canon like that. Plays an homage in a lot of ways to Spider-Man, does have a central person in her life die, but which I feel like she could have done something about that, but that's fine. But that's really interesting that she's this hardworking paramedic who's like a lead and saves everybody's lives and is very tough, right? And so we see that she's this woman who's very independent. And then we see that even her mother was a scientist who was independent, a single woman also, and was able to find a cure through this spider by being respectful and like in tune with nature and having to see that love conquers all, right? This idea of like love is this abstract force that conquers everything and can transcend time and barriers and universes. And so that's amazing, right? And we see how these women are just, every single woman is a female lead role that's worthy, right? Even though they all have different personalities and characteristics. And I love that they show that not just men are in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm sure a lot of us know that. But in case you didn't, they show how women are these lead roles in the STEM field, which is going to transcend time for other little girls that are going to watch this film. Their little girls are going to grow up seeing this, just like Wonder Woman, and they're going to think, I can do that. I want to be really good at math. I want to be in the health and science field. And I just think that it's just beautiful. I mean, that was something that obviously jumps out at you to tell little girls that they can do it, that they are worthy. And I just thought that was really beautiful. And then I'll just read off the list really quickly. Sorry, I went on a little soapbox. They talk about really greed, right? And not just in the two sides, the duality of greed, right? And we see this in the two different characters, and they're both characters of color, right? So we have Maddie Franklin is the character's name, but it's played by Celeste O'Connor. And then we see her juxtaposition as far as like money-wise in the character's name is Ezekiel Sims. and he's played by, I'm so sorry if I say this name wrong, Tahar Rahim. And so, like, Maddie Franklin is like a rich little girl, you know, and she uses her money for good. She's like, girls, I'm gonna buy you food, I'm gonna take care of you guys, like, don't feel like, I'm not gonna let this situation scare me, and then I will make sure that I'm a provider, instead of being like, well, I mean, at one point she does eat all the food for the girls, but I think it's because she's had to live by herself for so long. She doesn't, and she's an only child, she doesn't really know how to share. And she starts learning how to take care of these girls. They all learn lessons by having to be stuck together while they're on the run and hiding from Ezekiel Sims. And so she, as a character, even grows, right? Learning patience, understanding, sharing, and showing that she's not going to let the money go to her head and be greedy. She just takes the subway, you know, is just like a down-to-earth person. And she's a skateboarder, so she's obviously cool. And and that does come from oil and gas money from her parents, right? Who leave out of the country without her and don't want to deal with her. But she is very down to earth, I feel. And unlike maybe like this other character, Ezekiel Sims, who he takes Cassandra Webb's mother's discovery, kills her, and then he gets this spider, patents it, and then makes all this money off of it. And then he's ridden with guilt, and he's cursed because he kills this woman in the Amazon, and the spider people there save Cassandra Webb, and we'll go into that in a second. And so he has this dream curse on him where he relives his death every single night. And instead of like seeing that he has a curse on him and that it's because he did something terrible, and using the money for research or for something good, he instead is like, well, I'm just going to go and kill these 3 innocent little girls, right? And knowing that they're coming after him, and this is like, they're all dressed as spiders, and so it's definitely because he's guilty. And so instead of saying, you know what, I'm gonna like leave these girls alone, I don't know who they are, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I do think that I should change my ways. I have enough money, let me just go and use it to be a philanthropist for some reason, I don't know, hypothetically speaking. He doesn't. So we see this juxtaposition of his character with money as a foil to Maddie Franklin's character of money, right? And how greed can really envelop someone. And then we go into the fact that the last character, Julia Cornwall, is the name of the stage name of this character, but it's played by Sydney Sweeney, right? She's the actress. All 3 of these girls are like abandoned or left for some reason by their parents, right? And are orphans, as well as Cassandra Webb. And so we see that this movie talks about the foster system, it talks about adoption, obviously the female lead roles, and then this all goes into like how it talks about environmentalism. And I love this because, you know, it's water and the forest play such an important role in this film. And so these directors and writers are really, and producers are really trying to knock home to you about climate change and all the things that we need to wake up and do. And I really appreciate that Hollywood is making these themes a forefront in these past couple of years. I mean, it's like, I know everybody may feel like, okay, you're knocking us over the head with climate change, but it's like, well, you need to be knocked over the head with climate change until we actually have a viable solution, and then there's incremental vast change that happens to save our planet, right? And so I will, for one, think that was amazing. But we are talking about women as female leads, and so I want to kind of draw your attention now to how that is an illusion or a metaphor for like women and birthing, right? And so how important our waters are, and how important our mothers are, and women's rights, right? And so there's this scene where Cassandra Webb's mother dies, and she gets shot, and the spider people from the Amazon go and they grab her and they take her to this special like water oasis, and they try to save her, and they and Cassandra Webb's mother in the movie gives birth to her, and so they save the baby, her, but they don't save the mom. And it's a water birth, and so she comes to, the water saves her, the water gives her life, and that shows how powerful water is. And we think about, you know, like Florida, and is it Jacksonville, Florida, or Jacksonville, gosh dang, I should have written this down beforehand. And then we think about Michigan, and we think about all these places where, because of drilling, because of oil, because of construction, because of politicians that want to hire construction companies that are not going to go the extra mile and give those impoverished communities the type of pipe and sewage and water lines that are necessary for long-term safety of our water supply. Detroit, Flint, Michigan they had cracks and leaks and all of these things. They couldn't drink their water. I don't even know till today that they can drink their water. Look it up. And so the point where, like, they have to use bottled water for everything. It's like in that movie, what is the Dr. Seuss movie where they bottle air and they give you air? It's like, air is free. Water should be free. We should be able to drink it out of the tap, but they're going to bottle it and sell it to you. So it's like, just, I don't mind the spots on my apples. Just leave me the birds and the bees, please. Like, and don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone, but you pave paradise and you put up a parking lot. And it's just really important what this film's talking about our water system. And so we see that water is life, and it is death, and it is everything. We are 80% water? You know what I mean? Like, we need water. And then she has this rebirth, right? When she has to go back to the Amazon, and she goes back to this jungle. I think it's Peru. Is it Peru? Oh, jeez. Oh, I'm sorry. Look it up. See the movie. And so she goes back to the jungle where her mother was killed, and her, like, godfather, in essence, that was there at her, like, baptism, water birth, you know, finds her, and he's like, hey, I've been waiting for you. And she's like, okay, cool. And so they go back to this water oasis where she was born, and she has a dream, but goes back in time, and relives what had happened to her mother upon her death. And she is reborn herself and is able to understand more about herself. So she's introspective in a way now, and can kind of close wounds that she had her whole entire life, and now questions were answered for her, which helps her be a better mother because she's able to heal those mother wounds. And then so I talked about the water birth and how important water is, and the forest in the Amazon, and how the spider has healing properties, and how certain plants have healing properties. And we've known that for, I mean, many years, that the Amazon and all of these places that are pristine, or were pristine before big corporations went in there, really have healing medicinal properties in plants and certain things that are becoming extinct. And so I really found it so beautiful and important that they touched on all of these environmental topics. And then next, that leads me into, the espionage for the spider, right? How her mom was shot to get that spider. And it reminds you of Big Pharma and how in the US at least, we have insulin for diabetes is astronomically more expensive than what it even is costing to produce. So to make it costs a fraction of what they're charging people. So in Mexico right now, also, and I think I've mentioned it before, they are forcing corporations to put their sugar content on their bottles and their products, and they're just the recipes, and showing people like, hey, this is highly dangerous for you, and it says it on the labels. This is highly dangerous for you. This is way above like normal body consumption. I don't want to say feasibility, but you know what I mean. Like it's bad for you. It's toxic. And I heard that the U.S. is so upset that Mexico is forcing anybody to do this, that these corporations are now trying to sue Mexico, and the U.S. is trying to like change law, make sure this law doesn't go through and isn't going to impact their big corporations, like marketing and sales, because all of our politicians are invested in these huge corporations. They're invested in all of this sugar that's getting piped into our food and all of these terrible products that are being sold to us. And then it causes us to be unhealthy, gives us cancer and all of these other diseases, diabetes. And then we then have to, it's a cycle, we then have to pay the big pharma, and we get into medical debt, and we all die, and we're just at the bottom of the pyramid. And it's from our food to our water to our medicine, it's all keeping us right here, while these elite few are going to go and sue Mexico for even trying to have a little bit more power to try and help citizens be more healthy, because we all know the FDA is bullshit. And so I thought that was really interesting, how they were bringing that up, so that way people can wake up and start looking at what laws are being passed in so many different ways. Next, I wanted to say that they're breaking all these stereotypes and stigmas. And so one of them is, I told you I would come back to this, how Cassandra Webb doesn't have a romantic interest in the movie. She has her partner, Ben Parker, who I thought maybe there's a part 2, which I don't think there's going to be because of the way it ended. But maybe she'll come back and be like really powerful, and they'll do a movie about that and the girls coming into their power and becoming a more solidified team. But yeah, I thought Ben Parker was going to be her love interest, but it turns out that he's just her best friend, which I totally get. I have best friend guys like that. But she breaks the stereotype of a woman in a lead role needs to have a lead male partner who's also her love interest, right? That helps her kick ass. And it reminds me a lot of Wonder Woman, and that part in Wonder Woman where she's laying on the boat with her hubby, and they're just meeting, and he's asking her questions, and she's like, oh, you don't think I know what sex is? And she's just like, oh honey, like we have the 7 volumes or the 15 volumes of Venus's love, blah 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 blah, right? And she's like, women can give themselves all the pleasure that they need. They don't need a man. You know what I mean? And she means just like solo. She's not talking about like any sort of Sappho's relationships. You know what I mean? Like she's not talking about like being a lesbian. She's just talking about like self-love, self-pleasuring, masturbation, right? she's like, we don't need men. You're like a luxury, in the words of Cher, the wonderful Cher. But it's nice to have you. You know what I mean? I don't need you, but it's nice to have you. And so I thought that was really brilliant, because this whole movie is very much like woman empowerment and very feminist, and like there is no male love interest. It's beautiful. It's very important for young girls to see that. And that Ben Parker, her best friend, is an homage to the Peter Parker and his uncle Ben. But also we see Ben Parker in Madam Web has a sister, and she's pregnant, and her name's Mary Parker. And so she's like Mary Jane, like another homage to Mary Jane Parker, Peter Parker's wife. But now Ben and Mary in this movie, Madam Web, are brother and sister. But it also shows that her husband is away the whole time, and he's going to be gone for a long time, like during her pregnancy. And she may even have to do it by herself, and she knows that. And she's very patient and understanding, and she's like, yeah, like he's off doing his thing, I'm going to be here doing my thing, and I can do this. I can do it. Another strong type of woman. She does have her friends and family that help her and are around her being supportive, but she doesn't have her husband, right? And the fact that she's a pregnant woman who is independent as well and going through her pregnancy without her husband is another type of woman that they're showing, which I think is another almost like single mom, showing that she relies on her family and her friends to get through. And I think I really identify with that, and I think that's beautiful. So I like all of these topics that they're showing about adoption, foster system, female leads, and women being able to be independent, right? And so some of the other best parts that I really loved is that we see that Madam Web, Cassandra Webb in the movie, played by Dakota Johnson, she's not a person that has like crazy superpowers. She is a person who has intelligence, a STEM field background, and just like common sense, and oftentimes, yes, some of her premonitions or intuition, we'll say women's intuition, is played here in the film, and that helps her. But she fights back with her knowledge, her common sense, her gusto, and badass driving skills. It's funny because she's got the women's intuition and a vehicle that helps her fight, and literally just like crash into buildings on purpose, okay? Crash into buildings and crash into people. Just that one guy, okay? The one evil guy. She's not crashing into everybody. They're like, get your dog, get your sister, get your brother, get your kids, get your husband, because they crash into everybody around here. But she only crashes into that one man, Ezekiel Sims, several times. and so her driving skills are shown, it's Chekhov's gun, right? So at the very beginning of the film, it opens up with her being a crazy, badass paramedic driver. And she's able to weave in and out of New York traffic. And if you've ever driven in New York, you know how amazing that is, right? I remember being in New York, and you're driving, and all of a sudden, like, there's... Here in Texas, at least in San Antonio, they'll put cones, or those big barricades, the orange ones, to slowly get you to merge into a lane, right? So like 500 feet beforehand, okay, this lane is closing, we're going to start merging into this other lane, right? Not so in New York. But this was many years ago when I went. You're driving, and it's just all of a sudden, boom, manhole, with an orange marker saying manhole, or like, don't come over here. And then it's down to one lane for oncoming and going traffic. Literally. You have to zipper in. There's no police or construction workers telling you guys to zipper in. You just do it. So, for her being a paramedic driving in New York, it's a Chekhov's gun. It shows you that she's going to have to use her driving skills later, and that she's an expert in being a paramedic and the STEM field, and she's an expert in driving. So I think that's really awesome that it shows that right away. And she uses that, not like any sort of like crazy superpower. You know what I mean? And then she uses other practical life-saving skills like CPR. And she teaches the girls who don't have any superpowers at that point. She teaches them CPR. And they're able to... And another superpower, which is relying on women of color and other women to support women. Those are superpowers. To be able to have a body of women that you trust and you rely on, and to also have your education as far as like, I mean, obviously they're only in high school, but common sense and STEM and CPR and like these tools, these life-saving tools that aren't superpowers, they're practical life-saving superpowers. They're not like superhero Marvel Universe superpowers. They're real life things that we can teach our children and people around us. And then another thing that she does, which is amazing in the film, is they get the defibrillator, and when Ezekiel gets on top of the vehicle, they shock him, right? So they shock him and he flies off. And so that's super important. And so, I mean, insert MGMT song here. Like, ooh, baby, shock me like an electric feel. And so it was just these little things that they show are that women in real life are superheroes because we're intelligent, we're hardworking, and we're independent. That is what this movie is about. It is amazing. I literally can't. Like, I cannot with this movie. I didn't think I was going to like it that much, but I did. And so just to reiterate to these young women that are growing up, like, you can be a superhero and you don't need premonition. You just use your women's intuition, you study hard, you understand these common sense things. If you can go into the STEM field, great. If you go into some other field, you use your fucking gusto and your bravado and your independence and your like attitude, because that's going to help you. And so it's just, I love it. And then, like we see women of all races and all classes supporting each other. That is being a superhero. Because real women are queens when they build up other women, right? And so there's that. And then I'm almost done. I just want to do a couple little extras that I think that they threw in. And it's such an important note, and I may lose some people here, but it shows that paramedics and firefighters are the real first responders, not the cops. That paramedics and firefighters don't get enough media coverage. They don't get enough credit. They don't get enough respect, and I feel like they don't get enough in their budget, especially here in San Antonio. I feel like they don't specifically have their own budget that's going to help our medical workers, which are our cops, and not our cops, our medical workers, like our paramedics and our firefighters. And so I wish we could give more to them specifically, because those are our first responders that are putting their lives on the line. And it's just, I really appreciated that they gave a lot of credit to medical workers and firefighters, EMTs, and into this film. It's super important. And then I guess this is on a different note, but where I saw parallels that I think were little, what are they called? Easter eggs? I know we just came from Easter, so did you notice these Easter eggs, people? When they go into that motel where they're hiding out, in the wallpaper, not in the wallpaper, the wallpaper itself, it's reminiscent of Kubrick, of the Shining, right? Of the carpet when you see Danny and he's on his bike and he's going and you see the carpet that Kubrick has, doesn't the wallpaper in the motel where they're hiding out look like the carpet kind of in Kubrick's film? And I could be wrong, but I think I'm not. And so now I wanted to bring out how I feel like this has some sort of like parallels and little Easter eggs to The Shining. And I'll go into that now. So obviously I want to see, do the drapes match the curtains? You know what I'm saying? And by that, I mean, will the supernatural abilities of Danny in The Shining match the main character Dakota Johnson's Cassandra Webb, her mind power? So does Danny's mind power in The Shining, who's the carpet, obviously, match our wallpaper, which is Cassandra Webb? And how they both have mind power, right? But I don't think Cassandra Webb is just embodying one character of The Shining. I think she's Danny and Wendy at the same time, because she is both the child, right, that is given birth to in the water, but she's also the mother of these girls. She's like a surrogate mother to them and trying to protect them. And so she's running from this psycho, quote-unquote, dad figure, and I think he's the dad figure because by him chasing these three little girls, it gives birth to the beginning of their team solidifying together, right? And so go with me here. I also think if you look at Jack versus Ezekiel Sims, the other villain in the film, you know, Jack is a career man. He loses his job to alcoholism, right? And not being able to be patient with George, that child, who was on his debate team that he punches because George, he doesn't allow him on the debate team, and so George stabs like the tires in his car or something, right? If you didn't read the book, you don't know. But if you did read the book, then you know. And so Jack is this career man. He's trying to finish writing his script play, and he's just like trying to finish this book, and he refuses to see the warning signs of the hauntings of that house. He goes to the basement, he hears the radio, he hears his abusive father's voice, he relives all of this trauma about his father beating his mother down at the kitchen table. You know, like, he relives all of this trauma and sees the hauntings, but at this, he's so egotistical. He's so wanting to make it right that he refuses to leave and take his family to safety, right? He refuses to see that the hauntings are being caused by him in essence, because they're feeding off of him and his trauma. So we see that with Ezekiel Sims in a way, right? I mean, it's not verbatim, it's not exact, but this idea of how Ezekiel Sims is the villain, but he refuses to leave the girls alone despite his dream curse. You would think that the dream curse would be like, okay, maybe Ezekiel, you should go into a different line of work. You know what I mean? And not be such a damn jerk and commit espionage and be a big pharma tycoon. But no, he wants to go the extra mile and just keep his money and not give a crap about his guilt and just kill the girls, and that'll solve the problem, right? So we see that, right? These two father figures, Jack Torrance from The Shining and Ezekiel Sims, who is the catalyst for these girls coming together as a team, these women. The girls and Cassandra Webb, who's a woman. So I thought that was really interesting, and so many Shining vibes, right? If you really look into the parallels. Lastly, and I'm gonna take a sip of coffee now. Sorry. But yeah, so I like their play on like future and how future is variable, nothing's finite. We see, what is it, Spider-Man Multiverse, with the young Puerto Rican boy. Oh God, what's his name? Danny Trejo. I'm just kidding. What's I don't remember his name. I loved that film too. I loved the way it was drawn, and it was just like, it was just so good. Anyways, but neither here nor there. So I like how there's this multiverse theme continuing, which, I mean, obviously the web, right? And so it all ties into each other. I think they did very well, right? And hopefully if they make another Spider-Man multiverse, they're gonna have Madam Web take a little cameo in there. I think that'd be really awesome. If she hasn't already, I need to go back and look now. In fact, oh my God, now that I'm thinking about it, does Maddie Franklin come out in Spidey Multiverse when they're in the multiverse like office or compound and he has to try and escape? And then the other man is just, oh my God, I'm seeing all these similarities now. And how what's his name lost his kid and then has to go, and he's like this like Hispanic, Mexican, well, like Latino, other Latino. Oh my God, I'm gonna go back, and there might be a part 2 to this, okay? And so there's that, right? I love the multiverse and how there's the dream seeing, and I call it dream seeing because I also work with sci-fi in my trilogy, which should be coming out soon. And by soon I mean who knows when. So in my trilogy I do have dream seeing, and it is through time. So the past, though, I work a lot with the past, and not so much with the future, with the dream seeing and the premonitions, and how there is multiverses on top of multiverses. And so I call it dream seeing, but that's just my verbiage that I've used for my sci-fi novel. Please don't take it. If you do, I hope you get a dream curse. No, I'm just kidding. Or am I? No, I'm just kidding. But and so then the last point I wanted to say is that I guess Dakota Johnson, I had never really seen her in any films ever. This was the first one, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna like her style of presentation and her style of acting. And I'll tell you right now, she won me over. At the beginning of the film, I was not 100% in love with her style of acting, we'll just say. I didn't like it. It took me a second. And then eventually she started delivering these like one-liners and these like subtle jokes, and the way her deadpan comedy just plays out. I think it worked really well with this character and really well with this script, because you see how she eventually you connect how she, you know, was a foster child, and so deflection and defense mechanisms is like a really big part of what she had to do to like mediate her situation. And then there's that scene where she's like talking about, she's reading through her mother's journal, and she sees that people can climb the walls because Ezekiel was climbing after them. And so she's like, well, how do I know if I can't do it if I never try? And so she tries to jump on the wall, and then she falls. And then how she's like always talking to her cat, and she's like, don't tell anybody that happened. You know, it's just very cute. It's just like it's just delivered very well. And I laughed. I thought it was hilarious. But that's because I saw, I guess, like a lot of myself in that, because I talk to my cats all the time, and I can be pretty deadpan with my like sarcastic comments. And then the last one is someone told me, I was at the bar that I enjoy going to, and I was writing my notes down about this movie review, and they were like, oh, what are you doing? Some random stranger. And I was like, oh, I'm trying to do a movie review on Madam Web. And they were like, oh yeah, that girl from Euphoria is in it. And that's all they said. And then we kind of just changed. I was like, oh, I've never seen it. And they were like, oh, never mind. And then we changed the subject. But apparently, Julia Cornwall, who is in, that's her name in the movie, she's the actress Sydney Sweeney. And apparently that actress is in this show called Euphoria, and that she's like the bad girl in Euphoria or something like that. I don't know. I haven't seen the show. I don't watch a lot of TV. Sorry. And she is so different in this film. She's like the innocent. I mean, her skirt is like up to her asshole. the skirt's really short that she's wearing. But yeah, no, but other than that, she is supposed to be like the innocent girl in this film. And so apparently there's this like juxtaposition of her characters in different films that she's in, shows and stuff. And then I know she also just came out in a horror movie, and I haven't seen it yet, but you know, let me know in the comments if you feel like it was a good movie and if it was worth watching. No spoilers. But yeah, I definitely want to check that horror movie out that she's in, Sydney Sweeney. And that's it. Those are the main things that I really liked. I liked that it broke the glass ceiling for women in so many ways. It was about women of different races, ethnicities, and classes helping each other, overcoming greed, overcoming the need to have a male counterpart, and being able to rely on like sister bonds. Talked heavily about the foster system and adoption, which is really important because don't shop, adopt. You know what I mean? Like, we as people don't need to be breeding more. Like, if you want to have your own child, that's beautiful. I'm still on the fence about it, but I definitely want to foster and adopt. It's one of, oh my god, I've wanted to foster and adopt since I was like 18, since since I was 18 in my undergrad, in one of my like creative writing classes, or like English Comp 2 or something like that. You have to take, we have to all do a presentation. At the time we had to, and one of my classmates was talking about the foster system and how many kids are in the foster system and how many kids need to be adopted. And ever since I've been 18, and more than 10 years later, I'm not gonna tell you my age, but yeah, I've just, ever since that moment, I thought, if I have the money, which I don't right now, but if I'm able to, I would love to foster or adopt. I mean, and they said, I've talked to different foster agencies, and they said all you have to do is be 21 and you can do it. And I was like, no, there's no way. I don't have the money. I live in a 1-bedroom. That's crazy. And they're like, it's okay. Like, they'll give you money if you adopt someone or foster someone. And I'm like, that's still okay. I was like, but I don't make enough money to even, I want to be able to give my kids like everything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to just be scraping by and like have to use the money the government's giving us. That should be like set aside for your tuition. Well, they also get tuition, free tuition, but still, like, that should be set aside for their savings. I want to be able to be a parent that I can adopt or foster and not have to worry about that at all, and not have to have these kids be in such dire situations that we're scraping by. Anyways, I love that it's talking about adopting and fostering. I love that it's all the environmental topics that it's covering, and it talks about immigration and deportation, and how Latinas are these strong, independent, really smart, hardworking people, and that women can do anything by themselves, but depending on friends and family is really all you need. If you have a partner, great, but if you don't, you can still do it by yourself. And then how it talks about big pharma, you know what I mean? And just like how we need to start being more cognizant and awake about what our government is doing, because it's just, Trump and Biden both have been passing some crazy, crazy laws and things that have been happening in both of their presidencies. It's just really sad. And so this content creator that I like, Austin Archer, who didn't like this movie, but I don't care. I listened to his podcast, and he was talking about how his parents adopted and like fostered. Anyways, I'm just gonna say, when I heard that, I was like, me too. I want to be like your mom. Maybe, but like, I don't want to be his mom. Call me mommy. No, I just want to, I will stop. Anyways, thank you so much for joining. You can call me mommy if you want. And leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Did you see Madam Web? Did you like it? Did you notice all of the things? What did you think about the Shining references? Did you notice that? Let me know, okay? Thank you so much if you watched this. I told you it was only going to be 5 minutes, okay? Right? Kind of 5 minutes. Okay, thanks so much for joining. Have a good day.